So next up, we will have Nawras Sawsou from Intel, and his headline is "What the Silicon Future?"
Let's hear what's behind these mysterious topics. Please join me giving a big round of applause as we welcome Nawras to the stage.
So here's the thing. All the greatness in the world, every feat, every breakthrough, every game-changing, paradigm-shifting accomplishment you admire out there, didn't come from out there. See, greatness, true greatness, your greatness, it can be easy to lose sight of. But it's here, inside all of us, inside you. And greatness, that can always grow greater. All it needs is ignition. So let's hit that switch, push the throttle, kick that door wide open. After all, we know a thing or two about what's inside, how to amplify it, how to multiply it, accelerate it. So you're not just leaning into the future, you're launching into it. With more ingenuity inside, more creativity inside, more security, innovation, intelligence. Because that greatness inside you, that is your superpower. Helping you unleash it? That's ours.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. It's a small group. Feel free to come forward if you wanted to. So today I'm going to be talking. I was asked by Atea to talk about a revolutionary technology. And there's nothing better than the silicon to talk about. This is one of the most advanced, it's the most advanced manufacturing that humans ever achieved. So we'll talk about silicon in general, we'll talk about the future, we come back to the current time, and I will leave you with some advice, if you allow me. So when you say Intel, what's the first thing that comes to mind? I actually asked AI, our own internal AI, like if you have a room full of 2,000 people and you ask what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the word Intel. And obviously, Intel stands for silicon, semiconductors, chips maybe. These are the answers that you would normally hear. And I want to stress on how important that part of the digital world supply chain is, right? It's very important to a level where I don't think any of you is not using one of these devices. So think of your week and tell me if you haven't used a phone or a PC or rode in a car or even used appliances at home. All of these have chips inside, right? The world produces 1.2 trillion chips every year. That's like 130 times more chips than people on Earth. So everything around us has become some sort of a smart device. And if you close your eyes and imagine that the chips disappeared from the world, probably we will go back to this is called, I think, the tin lid telephone, because you don't have any chips, you don't have any digital technology to communicate. And maybe to tell your manager that you're attending the Atea event today, you will need to type a letter and send it by mail. Remember these days? And probably this would have been your ride to the Mesokeskos today. So bottom line is, without chips, this is what we're going to be today. And probably, if you remember COVID, we got a flavor for that, like what happens when the world is short on chips and semiconductors. There were car manufacturers having thousands of cars in the production line just waiting for a chip, which is like $20. To an extent where there was a very famous book written few years back talking about the chip war. And the essence of what the book talk about is that wars will not be fought because of where oil is. I don't know if you can relate. In the 70s, Saudi Arabia stopped exporting oil to Europe. And what happened? People were stuck because their cars are parked, but they cannot drive them. So oil was where the power is and where the prosperity could be derived from. Today, it's chips, because the world runs on chips, and if you don't have a resilient supply chain of chips, then you will not have prosperity. So quickly, I will talk to you today about a little bit of history, like from the silicon world perspective, what got us here. And then we'll shift to talk about a little bit the future, what is in the store for us in the future, and go back to today and talk about what are the things that you need to care about. So starting with history, probably all you see in that huge advancements and fast pace that you see in the digital world, the credit goes to this guy. I don't know if you're familiar with Moore's Law. Anybody? Moore's Law? Great, so we have a lot of techies in the room. So Gordon Moore predicted at the late 60s that the number of transistors can double on a chip every 18 months, roughly. So think about it. That was in the 60s, right? So until today, Moore's Law is still alive and kicking. And it's amazing that that industry has advanced so quickly compared to other industries, thanks to Moore's Law. And of course, in the early 70s, he's one of the Intel co-founders, of course. He invented, with other colleagues of his, the first microchip called Intel 4004. And do you know how many transistors this had? 2,300 only. 2,300. Then you would think you can double from 2,000, that's easy. Today, the chips are probably in the magnitude of a couple of billion. So since the early 70s until today, Intel engineers and the industry at large, the semiconductor industry, has been trying to keep Moore's Law and keep advancing and doubling every 2 years. And we are still committed to getting to 1 trillion transistors on one package, which is fascinating if you think about it. I actually myself, yes, that's me in the picture, the guy with the Intel jersey, and that's a long time ago. I had the pleasure to meet with Gordon Moore in the US, and I asked them the following question: how long do you think Moore's Law can live? And you're asking Gordon Moore himself. Then he said, give it another 15 or 20 years. And that's in the mid-2000s. So the point is, we're still successful, but we are getting very close to the, to the barriers of physics, right? You cannot go below the atom size. And that brings me to what I wanted to talk about. What are we doing to keep that pace of innovation, right? It's very important, as we established, for the whole world. And we're doing a couple of things, not only Intel and the industry. For example, we're trying to take the transistor and innovate on the silicon itself, on the transistors, with technologies to improve the power delivery. We're building everything in 3D now. We're taking chiplets and then we are building them vertically through very advanced technologies that Intel is coming up with. The other thing also is that we are relentless and we're trying to exhaust the periodic table before we say that Moore's Law is dead. And the very promising technology or element that the R&D engineers are working with is carbon. Graphene is very promising because it's an atom-thick layer of carbon that we believe can generate transistors that are much more efficient, and we can stack many of them. And also, of course, there is in the industry different organizations and companies that are trying to find new ways of driving compute. And one of them is quantum computing, of course, where we are moving away from the sequential bits in today's computing, which is 0, 1, 0, 1 sequentially, to 0, 1 and either 1 or 0. So you're doing parallel computing versus the sequential computing we have today. And that is promising, and it will open up new frontiers for us. So we talked how important silicon is, the history. We went a little bit to the future. Now let's go back to today. So we realized how important that market is, or how important the silicon and semiconductor technologies are. And one thing about Intel that you should keep in mind, Intel is the only company left in the Western Hemisphere with capabilities to design and build chips under one roof, cutting-edge chips that. And the reason for that is that this business is very capital intensive. So what Intel does today, we design products and we build them at Intel factories, and that's called Intel products. And then we are opening up our factories in Europe and the US to external customers. And that's what we call Intel Foundry. We have a vast, geographically kind of balanced supply chain, which is really important, as we talked about. COVID taught us that you cannot rely on Asia for all the chips, right? You need a resilient, balanced supply chain, and this is what Intel is providing. And we do that in a very good, sustainable way, by the way. All of our factories in the Western Hemisphere are relying on renewable energy. Actually, between 2020 and today, we consumed 40 billion kilowatts of power, renewable energy power, or rather 40 kilowatt, and that's enough to power 4 million households. So the electricity that we consumed between 2020 and today can power the households in Finland for a year and a half, probably, which is pretty amazing too. And I want to show you, I think you can see the video running. This is from one of our clean rooms. It's one of our factories in Ireland, Fab 34. First of all, to build these, chips, you start, of course, with a silicon wafer, like this one. This is not a mirror. This is like pure silicon with tens of chips on it. I don't know if you can see each rectangle here is a chip with around 1 billion transistors probably on it. And that manufacturing process is super complicated. This machine that you see behind me is what we call the lithography machine that etches transistors on the silicon. And the process is amazing because if you see these dots, these are lead droplets, and there is 50,000 of them every second, where the machine throws a laser beam on each one of them, and that creates an explosion, a small explosion, that generates heat that is 40 times hotter than the crust of the sun. And that creates a very thin light at 13 nanometer that goes to that wafer that I showed you, and we etch the transistors on it. Bottom line, this manufacturing process cannot be replicated easily. So you need to make sure that Europe and the US has a very balanced supply chain to get your chips. Now, we're talking about today, and if you talk about the Intel products, I want to leave you with 3 messages. So, number 1, AI PC. I don't know if you've heard of it, but if you had heard of it, AI PC is the new norm. It's not like just the hype. By the end of this year, we would have shipped 100 million of these devices. And it's very simple. An AI PC is a PC that ships with a CPU, GPU, and a third engine, which is called the NPU, a neural processing unit. And that's important because it can drive all of these AI mundane tasks that you need to drive with the PC. Anything that has Ultra to it from Intel, where it says Intel Core Ultra, that means it ships with an NPU. For data center, similarly, like if you land on the latest Xeon 6 product, which is, by the way, manufactured in Ireland, here in Europe, then our customers are seeing that you can consolidate your data center up to 20-to-1. So think about it. If you are sitting on second-gen Xeon, for example, in your data center, and you upgrade to 6th-gen, you could reduce from 20 servers to 1, or from 8 servers to 1, or 5 to 1, depending on your workload. So think about that. You need to modernize the data center. The last one I want to talk about is quickly security. Please always remember that you can do whatever you want, or you can do what you have to do at the software level, at the operating system level, at the system level, but make sure you start always with silicon, because silicon is the first point of defense for your devices. When it comes to the AI PC, just remember one thing. A great AI PC experience starts with a great business PC experience. You just need to make sure that what you get for your organization is a business-grade PC. And for that, Intel has in the marketplace what we call Intel vPro platform. What vPro is, it's a certification program. So Intel engineers put together hardware, firmware, software, reference designs. Then we give them out to companies like Dell, HP, Lenovo. They build PCs, they come back, and then we certify it for them, and they can put a sticker on it called vPro. So you can pick up an AI PC, which is based on a vPro platform, and it will give you a few things. Security, stability, and all of that, but I want to focus on one thing. With these devices, you can manage these devices remotely under the operating system. I want to repeat, even if the operating system is dead or the device is switched off, vPro technology has a chip that allows you to go into the device under the operating system. And that's really important because there are many areas where you don't want IT technicians to come and pick up your device, or you cannot send the device. Think, for example, hospitals. Think like we have devices, vPro devices on ships. So if you want to fix a device and you don't know where the ship is, it's a problem, right? So remotely, you can access these devices. Now, many people would say that, well, but the operating system is stable nowadays. It doesn't fail. Yes, but if it fails, you need a very strong disaster recovery tool, and vPro out-of-band manageability offers that. One example from last year, probably you got to know about it, CrowdStrike Falcon Blue Screen, or what is called Blue Screen Friday. So there were more than 8 million devices. I see some nodding. There were like more than 8 million devices that were showing a blue screen. At airports, 911 service in the US, hospitals, it was horrendous. Only if you had vPro provisioned in these devices, you could remotely re-image all of these devices. Otherwise, you can never do that. So that is on the PC side. On the data center side, I don't need to tell you, everybody knows that generative AI is driving growth in the data center extensively. And it's not always generative AI, by the way. We're seeing like machine learning, data analytics, all of these legacy, I would call them AI workloads, they are also growing. And there's no better product to have to power the data center than Intel Xeon 6, which is the latest generation we have in the market. And the reason for that is very simple. Not only you will get high core count, high frequency, high access to memory and stuff like that, but what's unique about these new parts is that it comes with AI accelerators on every single core. So the message here is that if you want to start getting AI inferencing workloads, start on Xeon, because maybe you will not need these expensive high-end GPU farms. If you are running like legacy AI workloads, like data analytics and machine learning and stuff like that, Xeon is king there, of course. If you are driving any generative AI inference workloads of up to 20 billion parameters, you have an accelerator on every core in Xeon. So start there, and then if you need more, then you can go to the GPUs. Security, the message is very simple. I'm not going to tell you how important that is. You understand geopolitics, and you know where Finland is in the world, so it's very important. One message I want to leave you with, so think of the silicon, because if there are attacks that are successful, and they are state-sponsored, they attack you at the silicon level. And this is a third party, I think it's called ABI Research. So they measure all silicon designers and manufacturers on which one is the most secure. There's nobody who's 100% secure, but the most secure is Intel by far, so we're number one. Why? They look at how proactive the silicon manufacturer is in detecting vulnerabilities, patching them quickly, and this is how they come with the conclusion that the most secure silicon is Intel silicon. And my time is up. Thanks a lot for being here. I think there will be a bingo raffle at 3 just now, and there are 3 laptops to give away. So go back to the Intel stand.
Thank you, Nawras, for interesting presentation.
Sure.
So, as Intel continues to drive the innovation and transformation worldwide, what would be the one key message you would want to give to audience for building a better future?
Oh, good question. I would say embrace the latest technology very quickly. Make sure you are always an early adopter. Don't wait, because there's always going to be something new. Remember Moore's law. It's like running at the speed light. So embrace new technology, be an early adopter, and try new stuff.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.